All right, we are live with Angelina Lass, CX leader of Cisco. Angelina, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you on today.
No, thanks so much, Sabrina. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, I mean, talk about such an incredible background, and I am excited to kind of dive into it and really unpack, this idea of customer success. It's been a buzzword for a minute, but now we're noticing there's certain organizations really doing it right. And so I'm excited to unpack that with you, especially given your background. So maybe we'll start there. Tell us a little bit about your background, how you even got here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have an extensive background in clinical psychology and crisis intervention, which really prepared me and translated well into the move into business, the world of business IT, a little over 10 years ago. And since then, I've spanned roles everywhere from sales and business director. But really, my passion for building diverse and inclusive teams is what brought me to my customer success leadership role at Cisco. So it's been an exciting journey.
And that's the neat thing. I think a lot of folks who know me know my background is, around behavioral psychology and things like that. So what I love about you is you put the people aspect back in business and really back in technology, which sometimes we can kind of lose sight of, So I love that you've got that extensive background. It really does come into play. And, you lead CX for a global enterprise segment in one of the largest companies in the world and helping support some of the largest, most innovative, enterprise organizations across the country. So, you've got some insight that I think are all really excited to hear about. When you think of the best, when you really think of those enterprise organizations or even Cisco themselves, what are they doing right when it comes to customer success?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that really go into play. Really having like a customer obsessed mentality, but a one team approach, right? Being truly dedicated to aligning with customers and partners to drive those business outcomes, and really like enhance the value realization that customers are seeing. I think that being genuine about understanding the why behind our customers' investments, right? Let's face it, customers only purchase products and services for one reason, and that is to achieve their desired business outcomes, right? Whether it's to transform, scale, grow. They don't just want features and functions, they want to see results, meaningful outcomes that impact their business. And, I would argue that the why is just as, if not far more important than the how or the what, right? Mm-hmm. Aligning to the customer's why is what gives, your service, your solution purpose, right? And having that purpose drives us to be purposeful and intentional with every move and interaction we have. It's right, genuinely aligning with and understanding our customers and helping them be successful that really leads them to be our biggest promoters and advocates.
How do you do that? How do you, because there's one thing to say we have to have meaningful outcomes or we have to drive, what the, end user, the customer is trying to do. How do you get to that point? Is there some secret sauce? Is there something you're noticing your team is doing that's incredibly effective? Any guidance there?
I think it's being genuine and authentic, right? Coming to the table and not just being genuine and wanting to understand what your customers want you to start, stop, and keep doing, but really being receptive to the feedback that they're giving you and applying it, right? So it's one thing for a customer to give you feedback about where they need you to make course corrections or where they need you to align differently. But if you're not truly understanding it, if you're not embracing it and you're not applying it, you're breaking that trust that you're building.
That's a good point. It's about building this level of trust. And the way you get there is by showing that you're listening, right? Acting on it, being genuine, and maybe a little bit more altruistic. I mean, obviously we know that you're driving additional sales and utilization, adoption rates, expansion opportunities. I get that. But I think the way you get there, or what it sounds like you're saying, is the way you get there is through that authenticity, through asking tough questions, through coming together, coming to the table as a team, as opposed to maybe directing, well, this is your path, this is where you're going, but maybe having more of a collaborative conversation. Did I get that right?
Absolutely, right. I would even say that while adoption or renewals, right, may be a correlated outcome to customer success, it's not always the result, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the product features and functions don't lead to the business outcomes our customers need us to achieve. And in being genuine and wanting to help them be successful in achieving those outcomes, and by pushing their outcomes and not our product, sometimes that adoption and renewal won't happen, right? But it's understanding what they're wanting to get done, why they're wanting to get it done, that allows us to utilize the other investments that they've made, right? Or expand that value realization in other areas, as opposed to, right, having that kind of product first mindset that you see some companies leading with.
Yeah. And that's funny because it leads to sort of my next question, which is, you see the best of the best, and you also see the worst of the worst, right? I mean, you get to see things that other folks wouldn't get to see. And you also get to see and lead a team of folks who are driving customer success within those segments, or within the enterprise segment. And so, I'm dying to know what are those maybe customer success organizations doing wrong, or where do you see that there's pitfalls that are areas of, maybe improvement or opportunity, if you will?
I would say the biggest area of opportunity for improvement that I see within just some of the different organizations we work with is that while from a market standpoint, we all do have, right, a customer first mindset. But if we don't have a customer first, a one team approach, if you have a product first approach, I think that's where we fall short. Because you can be mindful of your customers going in, but if you're pushing your product, you've lost sight of what's best for your customer, right? And I think that's where you kind of toe that fine line between being a true customer advocate or being a corporate or a vendor bully, right? And pushing what's good for your organization and not necessarily what's good for your customer. And I think that's one of the biggest areas that I see for improvement with organizations we work with.
Oh, that's good. That's really good. Being a corporate bully. I mean, we get it, right? We've all been in those situations, regardless of where you are on this, technology spectrum, right? If you're the vendor, if you're the partner, if you're if you're the distributor, if you're the end user, or somewhere within this ecosystem where you feel like it's all about pushing that next sale, as opposed to saying, what does this client really need? What does this customer really need? And, we know that, or a lot of folks talk about this anticipated delay in sales cycles that CX experiences. It's not the same sort of renewal process that we're used to. Are you seeing that, or how do you see this impacting net sales? Because I know that's a concern in the industry.
I think the way I see it impacting net sales, right, for the biggest benefit for both customers and the organization, right, from a business perspective, is knowing when it's right to position the renewal, right? If it's not right for a renewal now because of a shift in priority for a customer, or because of a feature or function gap, right, that we're meeting with different release cycles, the renewal may not be appropriate now, but it may be appropriate later on down the road when the customer or the product has gotten to a certain point. And I think having that kind of visibility and insight proactively instead of reactively, instead of 6 months, 3 months to the end of the contract, scrambling to figure out whether or not, right, it's good time to renew, if we have to, right, true up and increase, right, what was utilized. And I think it's having that kind of proactiveness, that kind of care and forethought into how we work with our customers, where it may not bring the renewal in at the time the renewal was due, but it's bringing the renewal in at a time that's impactful for the customer. And I think that's where I see CX really playing into that sales cycle. And while it may lengthen it at times, it's lengthening it for good reasons. It's giving accurate insight into areas that we may not have been paying attention to before.
Yeah. And I could see that. I mean, I think about anybody that I really trust and value in work relationships or otherwise, you know that they're going to be the people who come to you and say, this doesn't make sense for you right now. We've got this great product coming up, or we've got, you've got this renewal opportunity, but right now, just this is what I'm seeing. This is what kind of the roadmap that we've laid out together. It doesn't quite make sense here, maybe here, and that's what builds that trusted advisor that we all are, going for. I mean, is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to shift with your customers, right? When we look at the huge shift the market took 2 years ago with COVID, right? And being able to course correct and make sure that we're supporting our customers in a way that they need to be supported, right? To make sure that they're getting the results that they need to be functioning, right, as businesses themselves.
Right. Yeah, and that makes sense. So I want to shift gears a little bit because I would love to know, as a leader, you're building this new team. You've got some folks who are already on your team that I think you inherited, and then you also have some teams that are brand new, both to the company and to customer success. So tell us a little bit about that. I mean, any words of wisdom that you're kind of gleaming as you're building this?
Yeah, I will say, right, just back to my passions, and I think what really makes our team strong is the diversity that we have amongst our team, right? And just having a diverse workforce doesn't automatically translate into an inclusive culture. So I think it's a combination of both, right? Inclusion is something that really needs to be built into your team intentionally, encouraging them to be authentic with who they're bringing to work, creating that environment where people really have a sense of belonging and feel safe to bring those innovative ideas to the table or challenge some of those pre-existing beliefs. And, I think it's also a combination of promoting that cultural competence, right? Whether it be a generational or a gender or an ethnicity, right? Diversity aspect that we have amongst us, if it's an approach or a style, persona that we bring to the table with us. I think it's having that kind of diversity and that inclusive culture that really does, right, make our team stronger, and help us strengthen in areas both where we, right, have already seen a lot of success and in areas where we need to grow. So I think that's where, from a leadership perspective, I see with my team just one of the biggest values and one of the biggest things that's helped make us so successful in working with one another.
Yeah. And I could see that. I think building a level where somebody can come to the table and say, I have a question, or I don't know how to solve this problem. And building a team where you bring in that diversity, you bring in those different perspectives, you bring in different experiences to be able to solve problems differently, because you can't solve yesterday's problem with today, or today's problem with yesterday's solution. You have to innovate. That's the whole point of driving success within customer success. So how do you do that as a leader? If you're tuning in right now and you're trying to build a more inclusive team, not just as sort of a front, but in a way that truly does impact the business and does make your clients and your customers better off because of it. Are there tips that you're seeing, or are there tricks that you're seeing that are working as you're building your team or meeting with your teams, that are driving that type of a culture?
Well, and I think, right, outside of inclusion and diversity, as much as they are about culture, they're also about connection, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, right, at Cisco, we really see inclusion as a bridge to connect those diverse perspectives, right? To spark those new ideas, explore new possibilities, tap into the power of digital transformation and innovation, and inspiring ideas. And I think it's being able to create a safe space, an environment where people have a real sense of belonging, but then also, right, connecting those different individuals, encouraging your team not just to be authentic with who they bring to work, but encouraging others to be authentic with who they bring to work. Sometimes, right, working with individuals to elicit some of that critical feedback that helps us all improve and grow in areas where we want to grow and improve ourselves. And I think from a leadership perspective, embracing that and owning it. I think one of the biggest ways that I've worked with my team in their empathy and their authenticity that they bring to the table is making sure I practice it every day when I show up to the table with them, making sure that I'm truly authentic with who I'm bringing to the table. And that I'm eliciting that feedback from them, right? Where do I need to start, stop, and continue doing things that are helping enable them to do the wonderful things that they're doing to move our customers forward?
You know, you bring up such a good point that I think we're all kind of guilty of, is being very conscious of what am I bringing to the table? How am I setting the stage? Not to mix analogies, but I'll just do it. How am I setting the stage for this team? Because whether you are a direct leader or part of a team or both, you know, I had a brilliant mentor tell me once, never underestimate who's watching you and learning from you. And so when we show up as authentic, as scary as that can be, it influences other people to be that way. And correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is it actually is beneficial both internally to an organization, but externally to your customer base. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And I think from not just an organization, but also a customer standpoint, right? We want people to own when they have it, and we want them to own when they don't. Wow. Right. I had a mentor of mine tell me once that, right, I'm not here because I have it right, but I'm here to get it right. And I think owning that sometimes just means that, like, you may not always have the answer coming in. We may not always have the solution coming in. The first step to being able to get it right, though, is owning the fact that you don't have it right to begin with. And I think that's what, as both individuals and as organizations, we need to do to help ourselves and our customers be successful.
That's going to be the quote. That's the quote. I mean, it is so good. It's not that you have it right, but you know you're going to get it right. And the only way you get there is exactly three things. You know, first, owning up, right? It goes back to what you were saying about reflection. Second is making sure you have that not just diverse team, but an inclusive team, because you can have diversity without inclusion. And that's a miss, a massive miss. But then third, owning it and really coming to the table. So first you find it, then you get the team to get the right answer, and then you own it and you fix it. It's not that you have the right answer, it's that you're going to get the right answer. You've got that confidence that we're going to get there, but it requires being authentic and, you know, sort of owning the fact that maybe we don't have all the right answers, or maybe the answers we had yesterday are not going to work today.
Yeah. And I would even add to that, right? Embracing your teams, your customer teams, your partner teams, your internal teams, right? Working with the individuals who are at the table with you, right? When you use the analogy of setting the table, work with the individuals who are at the table with you to get the most out of that setting, right? And to even enhance it, because if you only ever go to the cap of your own capabilities, you've limited yourself significantly. But when you leverage a team, right, especially a diverse team, you're just lifting that ceiling. You're lifting, right, the capabilities and the extent of what you can accomplish.
Yeah. God, you're so good. You are so good. This is so good. I so appreciate you. I love your vision. I love your authenticity. I love your background, because I think, you know, a lot of times, you know, studies show and the data show that women and minorities are far less likely to reach out for a new opportunity or even apply for jobs, that they don't feel like they check every single box. And I think a lot of times we get stuck, and we just talked about this with Rhonda Coleman last week, about, you know, your skills are transferable. You know, the fact that you have this incredible background in crisis intervention and psychology and all these degrees, you know, led you here. And now as a technology leader in high tech, you're able to bring all of that to the table and then drive even more inclusivity across the board in a Fortune 50 company. I mean, talk about mega powerful. That's just so good. It's so good. You know, I know we just have a few more minutes. I could spend an hour with you and then some, you know, just sort of as a last sort of closing idea or remarks, we'd love to know, what role do you see inclusion and diversity playing in customer success?
That's a loaded question. I think in order to, right, have customers be successful, you really do have to embrace diversity and inclusion, right? Both with your own internal teams in coming to the right solution and identifying it, but then also in helping execute it, right? Embracing the diversity amongst, right, the different organizations, the different people that you're working with between the customer, right, in your own company, but really just embracing it. And I think where there are differences, so often our initial reaction is to back away from or resist those differences, but really lean into them and embrace them and look at how those differing opinions can enhance, or maybe just change. Maybe it doesn't enhance, but look at the ways it could change your approach. Maybe you don't choose to go down that path, but I think once we've truly embraced that diversity, once we truly have an inclusive culture that we take with us every day, I think that's what makes us successful. That's what allows us to be able to be empathetic and course correct where needed to make customers successful.
Way to end on a high note. Angelina, thank you. Thank you. I can't wait to see what you do next. Great things ahead. All right. Thanks, everyone. Another great live. We'll see you later.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.